Hey everyone, this is Dustin with East Tennessee Mentorship Association. I'm currently in my home office, snowed in. Ooh, no, I'm not really snowed in. There's a light dusting outside. I have the windows open so I can see if it's, going to get more intriguing out there or not. Maybe we'll have some ice, I don't know. But it's the evening time. I'm home just because this is my time to relax. But during my time to relax, I have been kind of revisiting a concept that I've used a lot in sessions lately. And if you study with it, or if you struggle with any kind of mental health issue, I would encourage you to listen to this to the end. I think it'll be helpful. And basically what I want to talk about is a very controversial figure in history. Sigmund Freud, the godfather of psychology. It seems to me that he had a bunch of good breakthroughs, and somewhere along the line we decided that everything about psychology must be empirical. We must back this up with the scientific process and scientific data. Well, you can't do that with human consciousness because there's only so much of it you can observe, and anyone who truly studies it has a little touch of insanity about them because we're studying the human shadow. If you want to help people overcome darkness, you have to understand human darkness. And Sigmund Freud didn't shy away from that. You could tell in his writings and some of his ideas. That said, he had three concepts that he contributed to psychology that I use all the time and will continue to study throughout the rest of my life. The first one is the idea of talk therapy. That didn't even exist before Sigmund Freud. I wouldn't have a job, this industry wouldn't exist. And I mean, there's some debate as to whether he actually came up with that idea. He was the first one to kind of write about it and study it. But of course, priests and even medicine men and shamans and people throughout history have been using discourse, have been using conversation as a way to relieve pressure from the mind for a long time. So he still gets some credit for it because he's the first one to kind of formalize that process as a treatment option and make it clinical. So that's a big deal. The second thing is the parts of the mind, the id, the ego, and the superego. I'll get back to that in a minute. And the third thing is psychic determinism, which is the idea that however you're feeling, you feel that way for a reason. And if you analyze it, you can discover the root of that reason. And by understanding what caused you to be the way that you are, it will help you to wrap your head around it and to deal with it without feeling so much pressure. The concept of Freud's that I use the most often in my work is definitely the three parts of the mind: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is basically where your brain stores all of your emotional data, and I kind of tie in your spiritual beliefs, and I also consider that to be sort of where the dream world exists. It's kind of like your subconscious, and it's super important that you process your emotional data so it doesn't build up to a point that it's more difficult to process. And that's what happens for a lot of clients. I talk about the id space in the brain all the time, and I consider it to be this giant run-on, never-ending Excel spreadsheet, and all that's in the cells is just like A, F, G, H, T, Y, exclamation point, pound, 1, 2, 3. Nobody can make any sense of that. It's just senseless data. And by looking at that data and compressing it and getting rid of the extraneous data that doesn't need to be there, you can kind of boil it down into the ego, which is your rational headspace. You can't do that without looking at it. You can do some options that, you skirt around the trauma without looking at it. I believe that, and I believe that it helps. But I also believe that in order to self-actualize, in order to draw the most lessons out of your life experience, you have to process the data. It is what it is. Psychology has developed along with the development of technology, and the more we understand computers, the more we understand that our mind is kind of just a mega computer. It's a expert data processing device. So when you get the emotional data into your ego space, into your rational mind, it would be more of something like a pie chart, a bar graph, something like that. Something you can look at for a few seconds. I understand. I'm ready to make my decision based on this data. And from there, you compress it even more into your sort of convictions and the way that you view the world, into your moral mind, which is called the superego. And so what I realized is in my own journey, through my own mental health obstacles, I had to compress decades of my id data. And it took months, it took years, I really started doing that about 5 years ago. My life has completely transformed, and now I've become very efficient at processing that data. And so my job as a mental health professional is to listen to other people's stories and to help them weed out the extraneous data, to help them draw out in real time rather than over the course of months or years. They are sharing the data with me, and I am compressing it, and I am helping them draw out the chart that will help them make decisions with how they use that data in their life. And basically, if you have too much emotional data, you do have a finite amount of space for that in your mind. And so if you're having memory issues, if you're having anger issues, if you're having attachment issues, basically if you're experiencing mental health issues in your life, the id data, the emotional space, is the first place that you should look. And of course, there are chemical issues and other issues, but such a high percentage of the time, if you just ask why, you will understand yourself so much more, and you will arrive at the underlying truth that your mind wants you to understand. When you feel more and more and more pressure, that is your mind telling you you need to acknowledge something about your life. And I don't want to make this too long, but basically, don't pay attention to the symptoms so much as the underlying truth. Don't pay attention to the fact that you hauled off and punched a hole in the wall, or you raised your voice in an inappropriate way, or you can't remember someone's name 30 seconds after they tell you it. Ask why that is. And eventually you'll realize, oh, I'm not angry. I just am insecure, or I hate myself, or I'm not living authentically, or I'm ashamed. And then even, okay, I'm not angry, I'm ashamed. Well, why are you ashamed? Go back, go deeper into your id space, and if you need someone to help, give me a call. So, shout out to Sigmund Freud. Him and some of those people who made those initial breakthroughs, I really think they were headed in the right direction, and we should go back to some of those fundamentals of just helping people process data. Everything doesn't have to be a doctorate level thesis, you know? We don't have to have, not everyone needs to understand all the underlying theories, but if someone can sit here and break down, I don't even have a bachelor's degree yet, and I can look at that lesson from Freud and make it applicable, and anyone should be able to apply that in their mind and understand whether or not they have too much emotional data that they can't address. So I hope this was helpful for someone. If it reaches even one person and connects in a way that's digestible to you, then I will not have wasted the last 8 minutes and 10 seconds of my life. So much love to y'all. If you're struggling, just keep pushing, because I promise a breakthrough is just around the corner. And if you need help finding that breakthrough, I'd be happy to help. Thanks so much.